Hello and welcome back to week 4 of low effort videos from me. Part 4 of my top 50 favorite games of all time, and we are cracking the top 20. So let's get right to it. My number 20 is a game that's a popular series. It started on the N64 and it really hit its stride during the GameCube era. And when I say hit its stride, I mean hit its stride. We are of course talking about Super Smash Bros. Melee! And it's Melee, not Melee. This isn't mealworms, it's a Melee. And the reason I know that is because they say it in the title screen, so take that and suck it. But Smash Bros. Melee, holy crap. If there was a game that I spent more time not only playing at my house, but playing at friends' houses growing up, it was this game. I remember, we just called it Smash. It wasn't even, you want to play Smash Brothers, you want to play Melee? No, it's time to smash. And we would play at my buddy David's house, we would go for hours, we would do stock, of course, items, no items. I'm not a Final Destination purist, I like having some items, not 2v2, I like doing 4, but I would always play as Marth. And even to this day, in the later games, even though Marth's in them, he's never been as good as he was in the original meaning Melee. But Melee is such a special game. It introduced the adventure mode. It introduced Fire Emblem to me. I never even heard of Fire Emblem before this game. And then these two characters, Marth and Roy, are secret unlockables, and it's like, who the hell are these people? There's a series of games that's popular enough to get in Smash Brothers that Japan never put here? Mind blown, like, especially at the time. In 2002, I would have been 14, I think, or no, I would have been 16 or so. Anyways, a teenager, and just having to be like, wow, a big revelation of, holy crap, there's games out there that I had never heard of. It was mind-blowing. So yeah, Smash Bros. Melee, excellent game. I prefer this to the newer ones, even though the newer one, like Brawl, was fun. A little slippery. The one on the Wii U was enjoyable, but the Wii U, eh. And then Ultimate, at this point, I think the Smash Bros. Community has gotten so toxic with their has to be Final Destination, has to be no items made, has to... it just got a little bit much, and I've also kind of cooled off on my competitive nature with games like this, but I still love Melee. I still could go back and play Melee. Good times, just had by all. So number 20, Melee, great start. Number 19 is another GameCube game, and it kind of just was on the GameCube. It had a brief stint on the Wii U, but really, I think this is a very underrated series, especially this particular game is the best of the 3-part series, technically 4 if you consider the 3DS one, and I'm talking about Pikmin 2. So when I heard of Pikmin coming out, it literally was put in Nintendo Power that Shigeru Miyamoto was in his garden and came up with this idea. And it's such a Nintendo game. Literally, you have these little minions you control and you have them do tasks for you. And it reminded me of another game that unfortunately is not on this list, but it's Lemmings. And Lemmings was like that, where you have this group of mindless robot creatures that go out and do your bidding. But Pikmin made them cute, gave them abilities, made it so that it wasn't as frustrating, wasn't as such a puzzle-based game. And that was the first one. You were on a time limit. Pikmin 2, you're still kind of on a time limit, but they introduced these subterranean sections that have no time limit, that were almost like dungeons. So you could take 50 Pikmin down there. They introduced purple ones, which were super strong, white ones, which were poison resistant. Just a great game. And then the Wii U one came out, Pikmin 3, and I unfortunately bought it when it was still expensive. It did go down in price, but for a while there, it was like an $80, $90 game. I just didn't like it. I didn't like the control scheme. But Pikmin 2, great game. It has a decent multiplayer. Not great. Really, it's about the main story. But yeah, Pikmin 2 is number 19. Now, number 18. Number 18 is actually a game that's pretty much directly responsible for this channel. It's the first video I ever did back when I was doing the videos with my buddy, who we only did one, so it's not like we did many, but that's another story. This is a game that kind of is my Super Nintendo RPG pick. Now, I didn't play Chrono Trigger growing up, I didn't play Earthbound growing up, I didn't play Secret of Mana growing up. And the first one I played Mario RPG, which probably should be on this list, but it's not. But we're talking about Treasure of the Rudras. What the hell is this game? Well, this is the game that was supposed to replace the Final Fantasy series. Whereas Final Fantasy usually relies on a lot of Christian mythology, Treasure of the Rudras went for a little bit more Eastern mythology. But then a game called Final Fantasy VII came out and blew the doors off, and so Treasure of the Rudris being a forgotten Super Nintendo game, came out in 96. At this point, it didn't make sense for them to transfer it to North America and translate it. Too much, like cart size, whatever. The game itself, though, is 3 different scenarios, so you can play as Surlant, Rizza, or Scion. And then each one of them goes through the world and has their own story, but they intersect from time to time. So it's kind of similar to the way Resident Evil 2 is, where you'll run into Claire and Leon at certain points and then go off. And then if you play the other scenario, you see it from the other side. And once you beat all 3 scenarios, then you unlock Dune. And Dune then has a tiny scenario where you go and beat the official game. What makes the game so cool, besides just the different scenario hopping, is that the magic system is word-based. So literally, this is a spell book that I wrote down, and I have just all these different spells. Like, you can't really read any of this, but there's it's based on almost syllables, where if you put Ig in front of it, it means that Ig is going to be a fire spell. Aqua is going to be water. Par is going to be, and so on and so forth. So you get these words of power.
And Expecto Patronus!
Thank you. You get these words of power, and then it allows you to then make spells. And the first playthrough takes the longest. I want to say the first one probably took me 25 to 30 hours, but then you learn kind of the way to cheese the system by learning the super spells. So the way I did it is I found out a way to give essentially bonus damage to my, because you have groups of 4, so it's like Final Fantasy VI in that regard, where you have 4 players, so you can buff one of them to have double damage, and then you can buff them again to do a crit and have a second attack, and then just essentially lay waste to bosses. And once I figured out how to do that, it made the game a lot faster. Still highly enjoyable. The music in the game is terrific. I mentioned earlier when I talked about Octopath that only one other game had this many different musical themes. It was this one. It was nice because you had the different themes depending on the playthrough as your main character. So you have Surlant, Rizza, and Scion all have their main themes. Then Dune has his boss theme. Then you have the end boss theme, which is super cool. So yeah, Treasure of the Rudris. Highly recommend checking it out if you like those old Super Nintendo RPGs. This is the one I'm picking over Chrono Trigger, Earthbound, Breath of Fire, all the... Oh god, I should put Breath of Fire 3 somewhere. Anyway, that's a great game too. So yeah, this is the one I picked for my number 18. Now number 17 is a gimme. It's one of my all-time favorite NES games. It's one of the all-time best platformers ever made. The Wizard talks about it as a great game, as a great advertisement. We're talking about Mario 3. I even have a copy with the bros here. Not that I care. But yeah, Mario 3. All the interpretations is the game taking place on the stage. This is the game I really remember playing a lot with my brother. I loved being Luigi, finding the different power-ups, finding the stars, the whistles, getting the frog suit, the Hammer Bros suit, and the damn anchor. Which, it's funny, to this day, most people don't know what the hell the anchor is. And I was just on that like a fiend. I saw a picture of it in Nintendo Power, and it is such a ridiculous way of getting the anchor. From what I remember reading, it's odd-leveled worlds even-numbered worlds with even-numbered stages getting a certain amount of coins. I don't know. I know you can get it at other stages, but I've only ever been able to find it in stage 2-2, and it just stops the damn ship from moving. So if you die, it's like you're planning on dying, so you prevent the ship from moving. It only does it once, so it's so stupid. But Mario Bros. 3, amazing game. I wish I liked Mario Maker more. I think part of the reason I didn't is because Mario 3's design mechanics was locked initially when I got the first one, and I literally couldn't play it enough to unlock it. That's how much I wasn't enjoying the game. Yeah, Mario 3. That is my number 17. Now, number 16, ironically, is a remake. So I didn't know much about remakes back in the early 2000s, but I was a hardcore Nintendo fanboy, and when Nintendo struck a deal with Capcom to bring one of my favorite franchises on the PlayStation as a Nintendo exclusive, including a brand new remake of the original game, I was sold. And Resident Evil Remake, I wasn't really planning on buying this when it came out. I was stoked for Resident Evil 4, but then I saw the graphics and the pictures, and it just looked amazing. And to bear in mind, I played the Director's Cut on the PlayStation, but just something about this game really was like, wow, this is the game should have been. This is how it should have looked. And I'd never had that experience yet in a gaming up to that time. You know, it's funny just playing the Final Fantasy VII Remake and kind of having that same sort of feeling. Although we'll talk about that in another video. But Resident Evil Remake was so cool because it not only streamlined it. It made much better voice acting, although now looking back, I kind of prefer the original voice acting. It had the same tank control, so it felt the same pre-rendered backgrounds, but it just looked cool, and they changed things. They streamlined things. They made the background garden area better. They changed the way Roger died, so Roger either gets eaten by a snake or eaten by a shark. It's just so cool. I was like, oh my god, all these little differences they made were phenomenal. And Resident Evil Remake, for a game that I never even saw coming, I can't believe how good it was. It is just amazing. So if you have never checked it out, and it's everywhere now. I mean, I'm sure you've checked it out, but at the time, it wasn't as overplayed as it is now. So that's number 16. Now, number 15. For a long time, this was my favorite NES game. For a long time. I don't know what changed. It just kind of dropped away. This is one of the games that I had to fight tooth and nail to stop my brother from taking back in the day. And I think it's the reason why I lost a lot more games to him, is because I needed his copy of Maniac Mansion. It was one of my top most nostalgic games. It's one of my favorite games. Number 15. It's up there. And it's not the PC version. I know the NES version has awkward controls, but it's just so fun. All the different opportunities you can have, the way you can have different playthroughs with different characters. Bear in mind, I always turned the sound off with the music. I would turn the radio off because I don't know, I like the eerie silence of walking up the stairs and the crickets chirping. I found more appealing. And just doing the various different things, you know, opening up the package, getting the stamps, being able to write, and all the different endings you can get, which there's so many different endings. I don't even know if I found all of them. Usually I would play Maniac Mansion for a while, get far enough, and then I'd get bored, or the console would turn off, or I'd kill myself. Because that's the thing, is you can blow up the house, or you can do other various things to end the game prematurely. My first foray into adventure games was still one of my favorite ones. I remember reading in Nintendo Power that they were making a sequel, but it never came out. And then Day of the Tentacle is one of those games that I, to this day, have been meaning to go and play. I have the remake of it, or the re-release of it on the PS4. I'll get to it someday, but Maniac Mansion, number 15. Number 14. Now, this is another one that is a huge, huge favorite of mine, obviously. I found it on the Sega Channel. It's a Genesis game. It's one of the highest Genesis games on this list, although there is one higher. Probably I know what it is. And it's funny, I had one of my commenters mention Mutant League Football. Well, Mutant League Hockey is the one I prefer. I love the old NHL games, NHL 93, 94. Mutant League Hockey is that engine, but you gotta kill each other. There's traps on the ice, you can blow up, you can fall on the ice, you can get stuck on spikes, you can do dirty plays where you kill the goalie or turn the goalie into a giant demon mouth. Like, it's just so ridiculous and so much fun. I still can't believe that, you know, I still don't know how I found this game, like on Sega Channel, a game called Mutant League Hockey. And I tried football. I never really enjoyed it. I don't know what it was. The hockey game was great, football not so much. And I went out, and I believe I bought this on eBay back in the day, and I'm glad I did, because it shot up in price. It's kind of come down to earth a little bit, but it was up over $100 and something, which, damn, it's well worth it. It's well worth it. Mutant League Hockey, my number 14. So my number 13 is actually digital only, so sadly enough. And it was on my games that need a physical release, and it is one of the reasons why I wanted an Xbox 360 so bad for the original. We're talking, of course, Geometry Wars 2. The reason why it's 2 is because 2 took everything 1 did and made it better. And one thing it really did is it introduced sequence. And sequence is one of my all-time favorite gamer marathons in any game. I'm not a big shooter guy. I'm not a big horizontal shooter guy. I'm not a big twin-stick shooter. But this game, oh my god, the colors, the brightness. You know, you get home from a night of partying and you turn that on, oh my god, it's heart-pumping, it is amazing. And in sequence mode, going through all the different things and seeing how far you can get. I never managed to beat everyone and clear everyone, but I did manage to get to the end. And what was funny is I went to my buddy's house who also had the game, and I beat it on his, so every time I logged on Xbox Live, it would say you, and then your friend, and it looked like Purple Cron was just underneath me by like 6,000 points. In reality, it was me. So yeah, Geometry Wars 2, amazing, simple, but so much fun, and that's my number 13. So number 12. Now, a few videos ago, I mentioned Harvest Moon 64. Now, that would have been a lot higher on this list if not for a new game that came out in 2015 that I didn't even play till a couple years later. They took that Harvest Moon formula and modernized it and made it so much better, and that is Stardew Valley. And damn, did I love Stardew Valley? I even recently bought it for the Switch right before this whole thing went down. I was playing that at work and having just as much fun. It's such a great, simple game, just like Harvest Moon, but it adds so much more realness. Like, there's the ability to get divorced in the game. You have a cave where you can fight. They have real-world problems. You have to deal with people getting drunk and passing out, and people getting abused. Like, not that this is a great thing, but, you know, obviously not that that's a great thing, but it feels a little bit more adult than Harvest Moon, which was very fairy tale-like and whimsical. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's nice, and it still has that level of magic. You have the little things that you collect stuff for to save the town square, or you can sell out to Joja Mart. Like, it's a cool game. It's a cool, relaxing game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It has just enough combat to keep you coming back from it. Although, like Harvest Moon, you do get to a certain point where, you know, you've already married the townsgirl, you've already seen the whole year's worth of festivals, you've won them all, you've grown this, you've upgraded your farm, and at a certain point you kind of lose interest. Which I don't mind, because I like to move on to another game. And that's kind of where I was when I played it again on the Switch. But even then, I put in another 60 hours. So yeah, Stardew Valley, highly recommend it, especially now. That is a great game to be playing during this crisis. And number 11. Number 11 is, I want to say, the newest game on this list. Having only come out a few years ago, it overtook another game in the series, as far as my favorite game in the series, and it really stormed up this list, and that is God of War. God of War PS4. Part of it might be the way I faced the challenge, because one of the things when I first started dating Jen is she got me a PS3. She's a wonderful person. Obviously, I married her. And one of the games we played was God of War 3. And I remember when I put it on, she's like, oh, play it on Titan mode. I think Titan mode is the hardest mode. And I painstakingly made it through the game, fighting all the damn bosses, getting frustrated while she was enjoying watching it. And so when I got the new God of War 7 years later, 8, whatever it was, I put it on God of War mode. And holy cow, was that both a mistake and also awesome, because it has this ingrained place in my heart because of the challenge. Which is what I tell people, you really appreciate things that were a struggle. I mean, Cuphead's a game that's not on this list, but still, I really enjoyed that game because it was a struggle. And God of War, amazing combat. I was nervous that they were going to ruin it by going to a different perspective, going to a different weapon, but completely out the door as soon as I was playing it. Everything was great. It was one of those games where even after you've beaten it, you still want to play it. Even after I made the video on it, I still wanted to play it. And I think I had the most captured footage of this game, around 70, 80 gigabytes of footage. Such a terrific game. If you haven't played God of War PS4, highly recommend it. And, I mean, spoilers here, getting the Blades of Olympus in that game really is one of the defining moments of this generation for me in gaming. It was so cool because they did it right. They did it right where they did a fake where it's like, no, we've evolved the series. That portion of you is done, never coming back. And then it comes back. I know some people will be like, well, of course it's coming back. It's God of War game. No, not necessarily. How many times have they redone games and done something completely different or done something completely different? And then I'm just saying, no. So, that is my number 11. Woo! Another one in the books. And next week, we are looking at the top 10. So don't go anywhere. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. So nice getting a hold of you. Take care.